the retrospective. So, can you please stand up because you are, tired and sleeping and so on. Oh, that's really tiring. So, if you believe the retrospective is completely waste of your time, you can sit down. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, if you believe that the retrospective is... well, it was useful first few sprints, but not anymore, you can sit down. Few people, finally. I've been afraid I've been standing the whole talk. If you believe the retrospective is good, you can sit down. Is there anyone who believes it's awesome? Me, of course, good. I can stand the whole talk. So, the retrospective, to my opinion, is the best practice ever being designed in a Scrum and Agile. And if you don't implement any other practice in your work, you will eventually find it out by a very good retrospective. But it was not always the case when I think about that. Well, my first retrospective happened to be in 2005 when I've been in the US and we switched to Scrum. It was a very individual-based company. They haven't been speaking to each other within a team. They haven't been helping each other. And then one day, someone came and said, well, hey guys, you'll be doing Scrum. And then the other day, well, we are going to have a retrospective, so sit down around the table. And what's your task is to just say, okay, what do you like, or what do you dislike, or would like to change, or whatever. And then, I don't know about here, I knew how it looks about Czech, but in that time at the US, it looks in a way, we've got some small animal. It was not a bottle of water, but imagine it's a small animal. So we've been moving that small animal one by one, and everybody was like saying, well, no, I think that Scrum is really good, so I like it. It's really nice. And I would like to change, well, I think everything is going fine. So he set up some minor things like maybe that particular deep things in the code would be better, and then move it again. And then the next person says, well, no, it's really, I think it's fine. We are doing good. And it was like, I've been sitting there, and one of my colleagues been in a row in front of me. So he took that animal and said, well, guys, I don't know how about you, but I think we don't have a clue what the Scrum is about. We don't understand this. For example, we don't have a clue how to estimate, and it's just not working. So how about if we improve it, and how about if we discuss it more, and so on? And from then time on, every one of them was kind of saying, yeah, I don't understand the estimation either, so I would like to get it explained. And I don't understand this, so on. So what happened simply was that at the beginning there was not enough trust. There was not enough understanding why are we sitting there at the table and trying to do some retrospective. The only thing they told us was, they call it retrospection. And they said, well, it's like if you put a mirror in front of you so you see some kind of a picture in it. But the thing is with the mirror, and why is it so a good example, is that you see, every one of you would see a different picture. There is no single true. Everyone is right, but just partially. And that's the key principle which we'd like to kind of garden in the middle of the team via the retrospective. We want to let all the team members to understand that everyone of us is right, just partially. And then if I say, well, I feel that, to my opinion, the retrospectives are too long because I feel bored. It doesn't mean they are too long by definition. It just means I feel that way. And there might be somebody else who would say, well, I feel good about the stand-ups because they are good, and so on and so on. So there is no single true, no single picture in that mirror. So that was a kind of an introduction, but later on I passed some facilitation trainings and I realized that it's very good to give a retrospective much better structure than saying, well, you know, there is a mirror which you can see different pictures, every one of you, and send that stuffed animal around and ask the guys, okay, what do you like or dislike or whatever else. So I go through these steps so you can just kind of categorize these parts of the retrospective. So once you start, it's good to do some introduction. In any meeting you attend anyway. In the retrospective, it could look like, well, welcome. Now we are at the retrospective, so let's start. Or it could be a little bit more bigger. We will use that framework today to get the data. Or you can do some check-in. And one of my favorite things is kind of a weather check. So the very first minute we entered, and also if you have a virtual Teams, so you have them over the phone, the first thing which we do is some kind of a first circle, weather check-in. And the question is, imagine you are a weather. What kind of weather you would be? And then one of these guys might say, well, I feel like a thunderstorm. Well, I'm a kind of foggy morning, and I'm a sunshine, and I'm a kind of mid-cloud, mid-sunshine, sunny thing. And you directly know how the people feel. They don't have to be personal, so you don't have a clue if it's because my wife was angry with me this morning, so I am angry now, feeling like a thunderstorm, or if it's because the code is not working and I don't have a clue where is the bug. It could be whatever. But just, you've got some idea. That's the first benefit. The second is that every one of the team members who do this, they just stop thinking about what I forget to buy or what I am going to do in the code or what shall I do with that guy or that problem or whatever. They just stop, oh, we are at the retrospective. And the retrospective is about the stopping, looking back to the last sprint and say, okay, how shall we improve it? What was good on it, by the way, anyway? There might be always something good. So we let the people to kind of stop thinking and realize we are somewhere else. We want to change it. We want to do it differently. So that's one thing. You can do it. What kind of car? It would be Ferrari or Skoda, that's a Czech car, or whatever else. Do you have the Estonian car? No? Well, then use the Ferrari or Bugatti instead. So once we are done, that's 1 minute, 2 minutes, it doesn't take long, the introduction, there is a second step to get the ideas. And first few years, actually, I repeated exactly the same format of the retrospective, the circle, as I just said. Of course, you can do it more wise or less wise. You can do it plus or minus, which is not so good. Or you can say, okay, what would you like to keep and continue with? And on the other side, what would you like to change or improve? That's delta plus. That's good. It was working for me very well. But then for some reason, I start teaching the other people, the companies, how to use the Scrum and do the retrospectives and how to really apply those principles in reality. And I found out that the other Scrum Masters are not so skillful in facilitating those things. And the team members just cannot distinguish between plus and minus. So they've been always saying like, well, you know, first 3 sprints, there is nothing good. And there's these many things bad. We want to change them. And then they switch eventually after 3rd sprint and say, well, this was good, this was great, I like this, I like that. And no, there is nothing which I dislike. It's all good. So the retrospectives were kind of failing, and it was quite difficult to do it. So there are several frameworks how to gather the data, how to get the ideas, other than let the people talk. And one of them is to use those small sticker cards. So everyone can write down something, put it onto the board, so everyone else can see it. There is another psychological thing. Once you see your own handwriting, being here on the wall, it's yours retrospective. It's not my retrospective anymore, it's your retrospective. So that's kind of a good thing which can help you as well. And there is another, a few formats which you can use. The second format which I did, it was still the company I've been working at, but I came to the team who said, well, we don't need any retrospective. I said, why? Because we are a very good team, we are the best team in this company. I said, okay. Let's assume you are a very good team, but I still believe there is something which you can improve. The ideal team doesn't exist, and so on. I said, well, but we don't remember it. That's so tiny things. And we solved them right away. We don't need a retrospective at the end of the sprint. So what we did finally, we used this timeline and say, okay, let's put this big flip chart onto your war room, the place where you work, really, and give you a few stickers. And I'll make agreement with the Scrum Master that during the sprint, like the days came, he would be the first person to put a sticker on and make sure that the others would notice it. And eventually it worked very well. So at the end of sprint, we've got a board full of cards like this. Some of them were really funny. Things like Peter is playing the same songs all over again, and we hate it. And then there was another card, which was not red, but green, which was saying, well, he stopped playing that song and he's playing a new one, which is good. Just kind of, you smiled, you see. That's exactly what happened when I read it at retrospective. They smiled again and they laughed. They felt, that was a funny day, ha ha ha. Which is good. So we increase the positivity by those tiny stuff. But what you do at the retrospective, or what you can do at retrospective with this timeline is to say, okay, every one of you can do a dot for every one of those cards. And either you like it or not. So put a dot where you feel about this card. So we directly see that, for example, that card is quite positive for 3 of us, but quite negative for 1 of us. So let's discuss it. And there might be some completely positive things here or negative things somewhere else. So it helps us to drive the discussion, because if everyone says, well, it was good, and it was good, then it was enough to remember it and remind it. But if it was negative, we have to talk about it. And we would have a completely different discussion if it was not clear if it's good or not. So that's was working in that particular team. I'm not using it much often, but time to time it's useful. My favorite thing came to me about 3 years after or something even. I've been doing some coaching at a huge corporation, and they've got lots of coaches there. And I was quite new, and they said, well, you know, we are actually doing the retrospective now, so would you like to join us? We knew that you haven't been part of our team yet, but let's join us. It was a group who've been leading the transformation to Agile, and it was run in an Agile way. So, and he drew that star, and I was like, well, I've never really used that star. I read about it, but I don't have a clue why this star should be better. And finally, I found out that it's much more better, because it lets you, first of all, write these stickers, which is very good. Second of all, it just breaks the pattern plus and minus. There are things which you would like to start with. There are things which you would like to do less or more, stop, or continue with. So it kind of triggers the brain of the people to look at it from different angles and be more creative. So it's much less likely happen that they would say, no, we don't know what to write here, or we don't know what to say. Because this format is kind of triggering their brain. There are a few recommendations from my practice which you should not forget to mention. First of all, limit the number of words to 3 maximum. Why? Because if you let the people write 10 lines of something, then no one else can read it. It's kind of not clear to everyone what does that mean. So it's about identification of the idea. 3 words is just enough. Second recommendation is use a marker, really. So it's visible even for the people who are not standing here and reading it from this distance. That would help you a lot. So having these 2 things, The star was really helpful for me, and it was very good we use it. So as a next one, kind of iteration from this format, you can say, well, I realized that we've got lots of problems with testing recently. Actually, past few retrospectives, now and then, we've been always having trouble with testing. So how about if the next retrospective would be focused only for the testing? And we already dive into the testing. We try to think, okay, shall we start with something or less or more, stop or continue? So that's kind of a focusing retrospective. It can help you a lot to solve the problem which used to be here for a long time and there was no real change with it. And then there is another thing. I found out that, which was quite surprising, there is no one single format which is good for one team or culture or whatever, or me as a facilitator. That there is a different principle which I should use. And the principle says creativity. So it's very good if you are able to change the format how to gather data. Because you can get every time completely different ideas. So one of these creativity formats, you let the team draw the boat. There are some winds. So every card which is over there up kind of drives you with the boat as a wind. If it's far away, it's a strong wind. If it's very close, it would be the small, tiny wind, but still wind. Or there are the anchors, which kind of keeps you where you are, not help you with moving. So that's one thing which you can use. Later then I find out that those kind of categories doesn't even have to be complementary. So my favorite way of doing retrospective, time to time, not always, and definitely not the first retrospective, but with an advanced teams, it's asking what makes you smile. Put all those things here, in the middle of the face. And of course, the far corners would stand for something to improve, or don't like, or feeling unhappy, or change. So it doesn't really ask you what works well or what you would like to do more. It just asks you what makes you happy. And you would directly see how it changes the kind of feeling and the level of energy in the team. They even start smiling even if I draw that face and say like, really, what makes us happy? Haha, there was nothing which makes us happy, but they've been already laughing. So that's exactly what you can do. Via drawing such a different format for retrospective, you kind of navigate the team to that or that angle or whenever else. Stress some different ideas. And I have a few pictures for you how the teams been working with it. So this is kind of a typical like and dislike. You see these two faces over there and here. But still, even those two faces bring some kind of a fun and energy, and I think the people would like it much more than if you just do the plus and minus. It's just a tiny thing. It costs you 2 seconds extra, 3 maybe, to draw it, but it brings a high value. Then another thing, that's the boat, which I've been already talking about. So that's still what we knew. But then they said, you know, we've been using, next time I came and said, okay, how about to use the car, the sports car? So this is a Ferrari, I believe. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I think so. This is a Ferrari. And it was drawn by the whole team. So every person just took a marker and started to draw, oh, how about if we draw a parachute? And how about if we draw a wall here? And how about I draw these wheels and so on and so on. So it's multiple colors. You can see some of them at least, even on this picture. And so all the team members were kind of participating in creating that thing. And then it's even better. It's completely from the beginning to the end, their retrospective. And you as a facilitator can stand back and let them shine. And Finally, when I start to teach CSM classes, I've been asking Scrum Masters, okay, give me, you already knew the retrospective because you are becoming a certified Scrum Master, so I don't have to teach you, but sit in your groups and try to draw the most creative format for retrospective and explain the others. And recently I've got this picture. And I really like it because that's a flower, as you can see. Here this is warm. It's in Czech, so sorry for that. That's the water which needs to be there in order the flower really lives. Then we have some kind of additive for the ground, so it grows faster. And you know, the worm, it can damage a flower a bit, but there is a mole here, which can damage it even more. So I kind of like it because it was a playful way. They invented it at that training, but I think it helps them a lot with their learning. So you can be very creative, as it's visible here. So let's move on. The learning point is change the format every retrospective. You don't have to, but it's a good practice. Next one. Once you've got similar things, ideas like product owner and improve product owner, then grab them together and mark a circle, put a label, product owner. So it's kind of easier to read. You don't have to really think, okay, is it an improving of a product owner or is it something else? So there's a grouping. If you have 10 cards or 5 cards, you don't have to group. If you have 25, you have to group it anyway. Otherwise, you get lost. And the next one is dot voting. Are you familiar with that? No? Every one of the team members, then, next step, I'll ask them, okay, come here, bring a marker again, and make a dot to the idea which you feel is the most important for you to be discussed here at the retrospective. Every one of you has 3 dots. You can do them 1, 2, 3, or if you believe this one is the most important, you can do 1, 2, 3. So in 1 minute again, you've got kind of voting. So you finally knew that this issue is the most important for the team to be discussed. That one is the second, and then we have these 2. So you as a facilitator can spend, first of all, you can start with the 5-vote item, and then you can spend more time on that one. Anyway, it may happen that they are connected to each other, so you may not need more time anyway. But it's driven by the team. It's not driven anymore by the Scrum Master who would say, okay, I hear many times the product owner, so shall we start with the product owner? And the team say, yeah, okay, why not? Here, they are the influencers. And the goal of the retrospective is to really bring up their self-confidence, that they can change things, and they can grab the ownership about the solutions and problems and everything and solve them themselves. They don't need a Scrum Master for that, too. So that's still the step 2. Gather the ideas, grab them together, and vote for the importance from the team perspective. Next one. And next one is options. So what you do, you just generate the options here. It's a simple answer to the question, what shall we do about that? How can we possibly solve it? That's a brainstorming. You don't discuss if it's feasible or not, if you like it or not. Just put it there. As much options as you can even imagine. Sometimes you happen to need to deep dive into the root cause. So you might use some of those formats like Fishbone, who is asking, what exactly is the problem? Where can we see it? Who is influencing that problem or issue? Why it's happening and when? And by answering those kind of bones, you understand possibly the root cause. The other, which is more my personal favorite, is 5 times why. So you really ask, okay, why the product owner is not working? Well, the backlog is kind of not clear. Okay, why the backlog is not clear? and so on and so on and so on, while you find out where the root cause is. And don't solve the product owner problem, but maybe the user story problem, which is completely elsewhere. And finally, the last thing with this format is to select the action items. So make sure those things are clear and can be solved by, in this time, by Ella within one sprint. If not, create a new ones. Make it more detailed. But don't commit yourself to more action items than 3 to 5. My kind of maximum recommended is 3. If you take one per every team member, you will most likely not finish all of them. It's better to go lower and make it than higher and not. And it's good if you have really a name assigned for everything. If you have for the whole team, we will help each other. That's usually not going to happen anyway. They don't even know how to help each other. So that's not the right result of the retrospective. So that's pretty much how the retrospective works. And now let's go and discuss a few tools which you can use. One is a kind of team health meter. It doesn't exactly have to look like that, but what you would like to get some idea how the team feels. Are they happy or sad? And what's the real condition, what's the real rate of the positivity? Just tell me what you think. The successful teams, what is the ratio of positive to negative events? What do you think? 50-50? Any other idea? 30-70. To what? To negative or to positive?
To negative.
To positive to negative. It's 5 to 1. So it's 5 positive events to 1 negative. So the high-performing teams has a very high level of positivity. And it's not because they are successful. The positivity has to be there in order to allow them to be successful. So that's a lot of study from all the different areas where the people works. And it happened to be that the positivity needs to be kind of gardened and helped to be grown and so on and so on. So what you can do the positivity wall as well. It's similar to that flip chart with a timeline, but you can do, well, there'll be no bugs. And we committed to the sprint results, it was good. I'm just feeling happy, whatever it means. And I like the beer on Friday. And by the way, I've been on holiday. It's good for me as well. It could be whatever, but it's kind of whenever everybody sees it, they'll say, oh, we didn't have a Friday beer, so how about if we organize it? Because it increased our positivity wall, positivity level in the room. So that's all the things which you should kind of keep in mind doing the retrospective. It should not be just about complaining. This is not working, and we shall do something about it, but... Then finally, every meeting should have some closing. So summarize those action items, let the people write them onto the stickers and put them onto the Scrum board. So they see it every day. This would increase the level of success. And then you might happen to be in a team which is not working, which is passive, doesn't like to do either Scrum or retrospective. You see just the blind eyes and faces like that. Really angry people. So there is one concept you can do. You can draw this picture onto the doors when the people enter the retrospective meeting and ask them to put a sticker to one of those. The Explorer. If I feel like Explorer, I'm really going to the retrospective with high energy. You can use it, by the way, with any other meeting anyway. But I'm searching for new ideas. I'm really looking forward. And I will be very active to get it. Then there is a shopper. Well, I go with my cart, and yeah, if I hear something interesting, I will put it into the cart. That could be useful, yeah. These people are not really negative, they are just passive a bit. So they will not really help you with a good retrospective, but they will not destroy it. Then, of course, you've got a vacationer. That's the person who say, you know what? It's better to be at the retrospective than working. So I'm enjoying my free time. Again, he is not destroying your meeting, but it will be much harder to involve him than the shopper, for example. And then finally, there is a prisoner. That's the person who is here just because my manager said I must go to the retrospective. Or the Scrum says we have to do the retrospective, so I'm here. And the last thing you can expect from me is really to be active or help you with that fucking stupid meeting. So that's the prisoners. And there is one hint. If you happen to realize that you have the full room of prisoners, don't even try to do the retrospective. But think about and discuss with them why they feel as prisoners and how are you going to change it. And it might not be such an easy thing. So one concept which may help you, and I do this for the companies time to time, I try to explain them that they are a team. And it's their responsibility to be either bored or depressed or whatever, or change it. And that they can. And the tool which I use for that is coming from the Organizational Coaching Institute. And what they do is a design partnership alliance. So I use that flip chart. It's enough for that activity. And I ask them, OK, what makes a good team out of the people? So what are the values for the good team? Can you write them down? So we write them down. And I say, OK, what makes you really flourish? What makes you particularly a good team? What do you value internally? That's going to more deep and more internal to their thinking. Then the last thing is agreement. What are we afraid of? So what we will do if the things go difficult? What are we going to do? What are we afraid of first, and then what we could possibly do? It's pretty much the similar format as a retrospective, but it's focused only on the team. What makes us a good team? And then finally, accountability. What are we going to do about it? So when this is going to happen, I will raise my hand and say, I see it again, or whatever else. It could be I go to our manager and tell him that we are now a Scrum team, so he cannot go, or whatever else. And this format is usually a good way to start with. So they realize they could be a team, they could change something, and yeah. And that old retrospective is just about the change, how to make from individuals a team, how to make from people who don't believe they are responsible for anything, the very responsible people, how to make from people who are bored at work, the people who have fun. And finally, I have one last thing for you to think about. You might know it about the frog. That's why I believe the retrospective is so important. The frog is a very, very smart animal. That's my best picture ever, by the way. Whatever. And if you put her in front of the pot, which has a boiling water, and let her and throw it into the boiled water, she would jump out. So it will not be boiled. Never. But if you put it into the pot, to the cold water still, and then start the heating, and then the water's to be more and more and more hot, the frog got boiled. And it's the same thing with the people. If you don't let them stop by the retrospective and look back and say, okay, what shall we do? They don't even realize it. And once you realize it, the problem would be such a big and such a problematic that it would be very hard to deal with it. So we try to catch it here and say, okay, it starts to be too hot, so how about if we jump out? If you realize it once it's boiling, it's usually too late. Anyway, do you have any questions about the retrospective?
I have a question. So what is the advice, so if you have a product owner that's co-located with the team, so should product owner be on the retrospective, and should he, even if he is there, should he or she be active or passive?
What do you think?
So I'm product owner, I'm passive, but the team doesn't mind me to be there. And but so what's your?
Well, my recommendation is that the product owner is part of the Scrum team. It might not be part of the development team, but it's part of the Scrum team, so it eventually must be at the retrospective. There are a few exceptions. One is saying if you have a new Scrum team who has a lot of troubles between us, and we need to first kind of discuss how are we going to work, we might not want to have a product owner really interfering with that initial discussions. But after 3 sprints, we are quite happy about our relationship, and we are ready to invite you, and then we would like to have you at the retrospective and hear from you. Because otherwise it doesn't matter. Maybe we realize, by the way, we are a very good team here, development team. Testing is great, the development is great, the practice is perfect, the product owner, let's invite him. And then we realize, well, that person have a completely different view. He feels that we are too much digging into the technical details and we are not bringing enough value. Or maybe not. So that's, whenever I put the product owners into the retrospective, it was extremely valuable for the team. Any other question?
When do you recommend doing the retrospective? What time of day or week?
The retrospective, officially once per sprint at the end of the sprint. It has a focus to the past sprint. But in general, you can adapt those practice to pretty much anything you do. So if I've been solving a difficult problem with my teams as a development director, I've been doing some tiny retrospective in my head for myself only to just think, okay, what did I do that day? What went well? What could I possibly improve? What I shall do tomorrow differently? And then the day, keep it, and then stop again. So it's kind of an adaptation of that practice. You can do it in yourself. And you can do it if you're leading a company. We did it with our all directors in about every quarter on the strategy of the company.
Okay, but more specifically, my question was, let's say if the sprint starts on Monday, do you do the retrospective on Monday morning or Friday afternoon?
We do it after the sprint. So if the sprint ends on Friday, it could be any time on Monday, Tuesday. If it's Wednesday, Thursday, you already forget it, so it might be too long. So my recommendation would be Monday, Tuesday, when you still remember the last sprint, but it's already over. You've got some question here, I guess. No?
No, he clarified it for me.
Okay.
We reach always during the retrospective to the results and concrete tasks to the Scrum board, or you will continue sometimes in the next retrospective to talk about things in more detail?
So I mean, what kind of tasks?
It is solutions, options. You will select one topic, hot topic, and you can start to select options. And
Yeah.
you will agree what you will do with it.
Yes.
And you will find the task to the Scrum board.
Yes.
Always, or sometimes you will not have enough time because, and you will continue next time again at the same topic.
Well, the recommendation is to pretty much have the board where you have the star with all the cards in the room where you're sitting, so you see it. But the next retrospective start with a blank, completely new page. And if the people feel the problem is still there, they are free to put it there again. But we don't go through those items again and don't say, well, you know, last time we haven't been finishing the discussion about the testing, so how about if we... I just keep it onto the team. If they feel it's still important, they put it there again.
It's not directly about retrospective, but do you use also like demo, retrospective and planning, and do you do them all on the same day, and about how long do they take usually?
Well, it depends on the team. So I usually suggest not to combine them in a row because the people are too tired. But there are some teams who prefer it, so there is no problem with that. You ask for the planning, retrospective, and demo time?
Yeah.
The planning should take 30 minutes, and it's one of the most controversial statements, as I also usually have on the trainings. So you need a lot of preparation, you need a very good grooming in order to be able to do it, but that's the goal. And there are lots of reasons why. Then a retrospective usually is for 1 hour. There is a recommendation which says that it should be half an hour for every week of your sprint. So for 4 weeks sprint, it should be 2 hours. On the other hand, I believe in 1 hour you are able to touch the most important things. So 1 hour is enough. And the demo, well, it depends. Who are you going to present and so on. I think 1 hour is enough also for 2 hours, 2 week sprint.
About planning, how do you define the planning? In my experience, I have like full day planning.
How long is your sprint?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Well, do you like it?
No.
Well, so what we do on the planning, but you are already having a break, but maybe we can discuss the planning off topic and let the rest of the people go for the break. What do you think? Okay, so thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the conference.